Okay, maybe just also a point after Francesca's presentation. I would encourage you all to go tonight to the Arte Film Night. And there is a film which I think very much shows what still has to be done in many of the Islam countries. It is called Afghanische Frauen am Steuer. I'll say it, it's being translated for you. Are you going to put your, well, I'm going to be speaking English most of the time. Okay. Afghanische Frauen am Steuer, Dokumentation von Sarah Karimi. And it is a documentation from Slovakia. And this film, I think it shows us very much the courage, but also the mindsets. So which drawing perhaps on our in-between societies, between the difference and the change in mindsets. Maybe we can start just asking also, we are going to be talking about Egypt, of course, tomorrow. What about Tunisia with We Love? The involvement of women?
Yeah, still love. So, as I said, that we are working in many topics because the principal idea was to improve the quality of life in each city and in each place. And I know that my friend, she told to me in the morning that it's a very big and huge target, and we are conscious that we can improve. We can't improve the quality of life if we don't care about gender issues. And as Francesca said, in the Arab world and in the world in general, we have many problem, gender problem, and the situation of women have to be improved. And we work a lot. We work a lot on it, and we have a gender policy in the We Love network, in the chart and in the reglementation of We Love network. So, for example, in We Love SUS, men are minority, so we are governed by women, and it's a very beautiful way of governance, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Sure, certainly.
I just come back from a meeting with 80 Syrian women. I was the only man. It was very hard to me to spend 3 days listening the debate about the future of the women in Syria. But for me, it was a message of hope, because when we see this voluntary, this hardness of convinced on the future of Syria from all those women, coming from all the society, and from Muslim, Christian, non-religious, religious, Kurdish, Armenian, Arab. It was, as Francesca said, the women issue, it will be one of the issue who will play a principal role on the victory of the Syrian revolution.
Maybe I could also draw on one of the things that you have said. Also trying to draw in what was being talked about the question of memories, of victimization, of overcoming divide. You talked about, of course, preparing for the day after in Syria. Have you also, or do you talk about the question you mentioned the word transitional justice? What does that play at the moment especially in the discussion of Syrians out with Syria, because I think within Syria it must be very, very difficult to even start to think about how you're going to overcome the divides which are there.
Fortunately, inside Syria, we have the opportunity to discuss this issue now, especially in the liberated area. And people meet and people discuss freely, without any restriction. And the debate, it's very deep on the future, especially on the transitional justice, because it will be a very hard issue to resolve, to escape, to avoid any revenge, because after 2 years of bombarding, of killing, 90,000 killed, I think the revenge will be something to have in mind.
Do you have concepts how to try to prevent this?
We have already established what we call security network inside Syria, between different locality, between different village, between different cities, based on the personality, social personality, religious personality, and famous figures. And even we have cinema actors or people very known from the society, very respected. And those people, when they can meet, they can do it and resolve some local problems. Or sometimes they establish network on the web, on the internet, to resolve the question of kidnapping, of revenge, of something. It's because the state don't assume his role, and it's up to the society to resolve those problems. Concerning the memory, we study now the experience of others, especially in Argentina, in Chile, in Spain, and we had expertise from all those countries to build the future, the memory on the future, because without memory, the revenge can continue inside the human being. We must develop the recognition of the reality, the truth, and the memory. And after that, I think the social peace can be established.
Would anyone else like to comment on the question of divide and memory in this kind of situation? I mean, obviously also in Egypt it plays a role, but also in Tunisia to a lesser degree than in Syria, but also. Is this a debate which you are having at all?
Well, I think I talked briefly about a need that's now ongoing in the street, which is people are discussing the idea of free reconciliation, because right after the revolution, we just had this big, I would say, aggressive attitude from both parts. So a lot of people were kind of excluded. The word fulul, which means like a part of the old regime, was easily, like, people were labeling different people we had a big majority of people who didn't go to the street just for their fear, not because they were part of the old regime. And after the revolution, because of the enthusiasm, a lot of people were really labeling everyone. If you're not supporting the revolution 100%, then you're one of those fulul. And now people realize that it doesn't work like that. And we should really redefine like how the society can work, and how we can really build and have a state. And I guess it's mainly coming from the fact that people are missing the feel of a state because of the big number of troubles. And I guess this has to do with memory of two things. Like, one thing, when people talk about, especially in Egypt, when people talk about reconciliation, the straight ahead it comes to your mind the South Africa, although we don't have the same case at all. But then it's a big fear that it might go this direction, and then it's better to see what's happening in there. But the other part of memory is the fact that when you miss the feel of a state and the feel of security, you just start to reconsider your ideas and go to the next step on the day after again, as I mentioned.
Anis.
Well, I think that the memory should be for Tunisia. I think that the discussion was launched about transitional justice, and this the memory have to be included in all a big process. We have the same problem as in Egypt about fulul, etc., and we have not to exclude, because revolution was taken because to fight the exclusion. So now we have not to exclude others, even they was fulul or there was a member of the old regime. We have to integrate them on a big process of transitional justice, and it's not only a legal process or justice process, it's a civilizational process and social process to recognize the crimes, to speak about it, to trying to analyze and to forgive and to pass to another thing, because we can't stay all the time trying to exclude others. The old regime exclude, for example, Salafis and other categories. Now we exclude the old regime. After we don't know who will exclude. So I think that the process we have to launch the process, and it's a big and a huge work of civil society to trying to recognize all those crime and to be a part of this transitional justice. And we have a big example. For example, South Africa and Morocco too. They applicate this kind of process to trying to recuperate and to trying to find their history, and to don't be shame about it. Okay, we made many society made a lot of bad thing, but we have to be to assume and to pass to other thing, and to be to get hope, and to be optimistic about the future, and to build together, you know.
Francesca, is this an issue where we have a gender aspect? I mean, certainly in many constellations we have the gender aspect, that women are especially good at trying to go across the, what can you say, I'm thinking, to try and cross the kind of divides that have been made with this kind of thing. Do you see that kind of thing with your experience?
Yes, there is this kind of thing. I mean, women as part of the civil society are trying to overcome this gap and to take part to these efforts, which are still efforts, and they can have a role, of course, because because they are women, so they are used to this kind of talk. I'm saying it's a gender issue, but I think that talking about the past, there is also a danger that we should take into consideration. This idea of forgetting about the past and deleting it for women can be very negative, because there are countries like Tunisia and Egypt which have very advanced laws towards women. So the idea that some people have now to forget everything that belongs to the past, let's cancel everything, let's start from scratch, may also mean let's cancel these kind of laws, because these kind of laws very often, especially in Egypt, they were called the Suzanne laws, no? The laws for the women, the laws that granted to women a lot of rights, family laws. were not passed by Susan Mubarak. This I want to be very clear. This, I mean, it was the fight of the civil society and women's group was able to stop things like female, or try to stop things like female genital mutilations. But Susan Mubarak somehow tried to put her name on it, so to make them look like if it was her work that brought to this. So right now the danger is that let's forget the past, let's cancel everything, and let's cancel also these laws. So women are running on a very slippery situation, trying to keep what they need and to show that there was not all connected to the old regime, but it was their job that led to this. And in the same moment, they are trying to look at the future. So defend what's good in the past and look towards the future.
Thank you. I'd like to ask one more question, and then we shall ask the public for comments and questions. We have very different media reports from Syria at the moment. I don't know if there is a big difference between the media here in Germany and the media in France on reports about the rebellions, also using methods which one would not see as being conform with human rights. How do you see the role of the media, and also, of course, what can we do about this kind of thing? I think we're perhaps being rather naive if we thought that in a situation as in Syria, we wouldn't find this kind of thing happening, which of course doesn't make it better. But how do you see the media reportage on this kind of thing?
From the beginning, the regime understand the lesson from the Egyptian and Tunisian experience, and he forbidden all entrance of independent media in Syria, except some journalists who agree with his condition, as the famous Robert Fisk, as some others, who know from the beginning if they go through the regime, they will cover the side, they will make the propaganda of the regime, and they accept that, not because they are not professional, but it's linked to their ideology, because some of them continue to think it's a conspiracy, what's happening in Syria, it's imperialist, Zionist, Freemason, Martian conspiracy against Syrian regime, progressist, and all those. It's what I call the Pavlovian leftist. But it's like Robert Fisk, who have a very rich history in the profession, but unfortunately he lost his credibility now. But at the same time, the media in our age, they need, as I said, with all the respect of their profession, they need what it can be sold their newspaper. 100 of kills every day in Syria, it's not very important. When you switch on the French TV, news of 8 in the evening, the first news, it's about the cat of the neighborhood who lost her cat from the fifth floor, or the rapt of some woman who jogging in the forest, and nothing on Syria. And the Syrian regime, he understands this logic of the media, because if you respect level of killed by day, and you don't change this, you don't have 1,000 for a day, it's no matter. Nobody will be care about that. And believe me, you can look on your local media or national media every day, and you can confirm this hypothesis. You can find anything about Syria, except if something very exceptional coming, if bombarding coming, and to follow concerning the respect of human rights. Of course, when you have civilian rebels, it's not military rebels only. The beginning it was with the defectors from the army. Now we have civilians who take armed to defend themselves, to defend their family, to defend their village. And sometimes, and it's very hard work for the political framework of the revolution, sometimes they don't respect the human right. For them, when they arrest a member of the regime with in his iPhone photos of killing because they are proud when they kill people. They make photos, they make films. And I think the reaction cannot be all the time with the respect of the Geneva Convention. It's very difficult.
Okay. Francesca, maybe I can also ask you the concept of citizen journalist. I think we have a real dilemma that, of course, we are having, we have separate incidents or separate pictures, images. We don't exactly know where they've come from. And of course, with our setting of having established media standards, many of them, the Mail has been mentioned many times, are not what we think they should be, but they are in some way sort of supposed to be objective. We know they're not, but we have a plurality of media who can correct the stories or the images being shown. But with the citizen journalist, we have the situation, we have images, pictures, incidents being put onto the internet. We know we can, of course, as not only citizen journalists, but also media themselves, can manipulate images and pictures. So maybe I ask Francesca, what kind of situation are we in when we, as the outsiders, look at these images?
Yeah, let me first say, and Salam already knows this, I don't agree with him. I think that the journalists made a huge effort to cover this war and to tell this story. I lost friends in Syria. We lost the best journalist of our generation, whose name was Anthony Shadid, and died last year to cover Syria. We lost Mary Colvin, we lost Remy, who was a French photographer. We lost a lot of colleagues in Syria. So there has been an effort from journalists to cover this story. They did it going with the rebels and dying for this story. And there has been an effort to tell the story also on the other side. Salam knows I don't agree. Not all of those who agreed to go with the visa to Damascus did what Fisk did. I didn't like his story, you know it. But you cannot say that John Lee Anderson from the New Yorker didn't make an effort, even if he went with the visa to Damascus. I mean, you won't believe it, but they are so busy in Damascus right now that at a certain point they stop checking the journalists because they don't have enough people, enough secret police. I mean, so you are able, after a while, you are able to do whatever you want. And they are not very happy with people who goes there. I mean, I can tell you they don't want to give the visa back to CNN because they were not happy with the CNN crew who went in because they told stories about the planes of the government shooting to the people. So I think that it's a very, very, very difficult story to tell because there are two sides. The two sides don't talk to each other, so you are somehow embedded with one side and the other, or with the other one. I'm not saying who's wrong, who is right, because it's not my duty as a journalist to take position. I have my position as a person. I try to keep it out of my reports, but I mean, I'm just saying it's a very challenging story to tell, and that many journalists tried it. For the citizen journalists that you were asking, it's a very good source for us to have people on the ground who have been trained by people like Salam, maybe, and they are improving, and they send us pictures, images, and news. Still, this is a challenge as well, because I don't consider this is a source, meaning that I have to check and double check. I cannot trust what they say. I have to do as much as I can to confirm what they are saying, and it's not easy at all. So it is a little bit like what happened with the bloggers at a certain point. I mean, do you consider the bloggers as journalists? No, I don't. It doesn't mean that they are not good. They are very good. I'm very grateful for the information that they give me, but I'm the journalist. I'm the one who has to filter, make a filter and try to understand what's real and what it is not real. This is a war of information as well. It's a media war, so we have to be aware of this.
Salam, you wanted to answer?
Yes, Francesca, I don't confuse between journalist and media. For me, journalist, it's very honorable profession, and Anthony Shadid was a friend, and I lost many of other friends. I make a very different distinction between the journalist and the media, because the media is industry. The journalist is a job, it's a profession. When I know many of the people who are now in Syria, they wrote many papers and nobody published, not freelance. Even those who work with the biggest journal, because it's not the moment. We don't care. If you don't find something more exciting, don't do it. They told me all those things, and believe me, now 70% of Syria it's out of the control of the regime. 70%, and the journalists can go freely without even without fixer, if they want. But they need to have behind them their newspaper who push them to do it, or to pay them to do it, or cover them if something happening. They cannot do it individually, and they do a very good job. Recently, the Der Spiegel, Christopher Trotha, he explained clearly to the German public the situation in Syria. It was a very good interview, but after 2 years, before him, someone who was very known journalist, German journalist who is based now in Istanbul or in Dubai, he wrote a very he lie in a paper, and he don't want to recognize his lie, because he wrote this paper from his office in Istanbul or in Dubai about massacres in Syria, accusing the rebellion to do massacres, who was the most clear massacres for all people in Hawla. He wrote a shame paper, and he recognized it was a shame, and he said that to our friend Marcos, but he don't publish regret in the newspaper. For you, it's not. For the profession, it's not very glad to have such a person who don't recognize his mistake. I know it's a mistake, but honestly, he must recognize his mistake.
Okay.